We're on page, all right, we're on page 255. And so we're going to take a little bit of a turn from what we've been discussing primarily for the past many shiurim. We've been dealing with food preparation, cooking, the borer, food, separating food. We talked about tochein, we talked about lush, and we talked about many different food-related malachot. And today we're going to go into what we'll call floor maintenance. Okay, floor maintenance on Shabbat. We're going to deal primarily with sweeping and mopping. Okay, sweeping and washing. Okay, so sweeping the floor and washing the floor. So let us begin. We're on page 255, and we have here. If you don't mind, Rabotai, to put yourselves on mute. I can probably go in and do it myself, but it's going to take longer. Let me see if I can figure this out. All right, shkoach. So, all right. So something we have to keep in the back of the mind when we learn this Gemara, learn through these Gemarot, learn through the Rishonim, is that in the time of the Talmud, the floors that they had in the ancient days were floors that were dirt floors. Okay, now you walk around on dirt floors. Sometimes the earth would rise up as you're walking up, like dust storms or whatever you want to call them would come up. So they would sometimes sprinkle water down on the earthen floor, this way to keep all the earth down, so it wouldn't come up. Now, there would also be sweeping. Now, the issue here is the Gemara Masech Shabbat, in source number 1 says, Taner Rabbanon, Amechavin Marbet, someone who sweeps or sprinkles water on the floor. If he did it b'shoigeg b'Shabbat chayav chatat. Okay, that means it's a doraita. Right, according to this opinion in the Gemara, someone who sweeps or sprinkles water on the floor, he's chayav chatat, which means it's a doraita. Which malacha would it be? The Gemara here doesn't say, but we learned as follows, and I'll just read it outside in the laws of Shabbat. He writes over here, sweeping outdoors would be the malacha of choresh, which is plowing, and sweeping indoors on a dirt floor indoors would be an issue of boina, of building. Why? Because you would want to level the floor. Sometimes in an earthen floor, you would have holes in the floor. So you would want to sweep it in and make sure that it's nice and leveled. So it'd be an issue of boina. If you taste it, Yom Tov says the Gemara, you did it on purpose in Yom Tov, loikar boim. Again, it's a deraita. These are the words of Eliezer. Chamim say, echad zeh ve'echad zeh. Whether you're sprinkling on the floor some water or you are sweeping the dirt floor, eino elo mishum shvut. It's only a derabanan. It is a rabbinic in nature. It's not hayav deoraita. It's not a malacha deoraita. Ever, it's a derabanan. Okay, so here comes. That's the first source. Sweeping a dirt floor, according to the Rabbanan, it is according to Chamim. It's a derabanan, not a deoraita. All right, now the Gemara itself continues with the leniency when it comes to sprinkling water on the floor. Okay, a meimar, he shara zilcha b'mechuza. He allowed sprinkling water in the city of Mechuza. Omar, he said, Tamamai emur Rabbanan. Why did the Rabbanan say that you're not allowed to sprinkle? Why is that? Because you're going to come to smooth out holes in the dirt floor. But he says, Hacha lecha gumot. But here in Mechuza was a more developed city, and so they didn't have just earth floor. They had paved floors, right? So since they had paved floors, he said you're allowed to sprinkle on it, right? They all have stone floors. So you're allowed to sprinkle on it. That was a Meimar's kula in Mechuza, right? So he said, in our city, we don't have earthen floor, so we don't have this worry. about smoothing it out. Therefore, you're allowed to sprinkle. And now the another Tana said, Isha chachma marbetzat beita v'Shabbat. A wise woman can actually sprinkle water in her house on Shabbat. How does she do it? She does it like this. In the Sfiril and Karebi Shimon, Shari Afil Chatchila. What she would do, she would wash in different vessels, different kalim, and as she's washing, some of the water is sprinkling out into the floor. It's a davar she'enu mitkaven. It's something that I'm not purposely trying to do, right? It's not something that I'm intentionally doing. Davar she'enu mitkaven. It could fall, couldn't fall, whatever, and it happened. So then it would be permissible. Because it's not his intention to smooth out the holes in the floor. To fill out the holes in the floor, therefore it would be permissible. Okay, so we have here from the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, we have here two leniencies. Perhaps you can sprinkle, like a Maimar says, on a stone floor, on a paved floor, on a tiled floor, and because you have no worry about filling up the holes. Or if you do it in a way that it's a darshan miskaven, that's not my kavana. My kavana is to make sure the earth stays down, not that it should smooth out. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't happen that it's smooth out. Darshan miskaven, and we say like Rabbi Shimon, darshan miskaven is mutter fil chatchila. Okay, now. Now comes another Gemara in Masechet Shabbat further down, Kuf Chav Dalet, source number 3. And the Gemara wants to know, can I move a broom on Shabbat? All right, so we're not dealing right now with the muksa on Shabbat, but just to understand this Gemara, we have a keli shemelachta lalis. If you have a keli that's the malacha is for Islam, then you can only, it's a different type of malacha, it's a different type of muksa. And there's leniencies for that. Meaning that if you need the place or you need a thing, if you need a thing for something that's mutter, right, you're allowed to move it. Or if you need a place where it is, you're allowed to move it, right? So this is example, your pen, stapler, a scissor, which is muksa. But if I need a place where that pen is, meaning it's on my Shabbos table, and I need to move to put a plate on there, I can move the pen normally. I don't have to use my elbow, right? Because it's a keli shavlach l'asr, and it's mutter to move it for gufay or for itself, if you're using it for heter, or if it is limkoimai, if you need it for the place. Okay? You don't have to use your elbow. All right. So here comes the Gemara. Amar Biba, Amar Bechia, Bar Ashi. Amar Rav. So this machbedot shel milta, all right, these brooms made of fine wool garments. So they're made out of wool. They're made out of material. Okay, they're designed. These were designed to clean tables, not the floors. Okay, so the Gemara says, you're allowed to move it on Shabbat because it's not malachta l'ester. It's malachta the heter. It's something you're allowed to do. You're allowed to clean the table, so you're allowed to move it. Now the Gemara's question is, what about the brooms that are made of from the tamara, right, from the date palm fronds, like you're using the lulav type of pieces, the palm fronds to make a broom. And that broom was used for floors. Okay, and in times of the Talmud, the floors are earth, right? And you might come to smooth it out, right? So you're not allowed to sweep. So what about the broom? Is the broom, are you allowed to move it or not? So says the Gemara, you can't move it. Okay? It's a keli shalach deloser. So Ezra Omer, afshel tomorrow. Ezra says, even tomorrow you're allowed to move. So now the Gemara wants to understand, when you're saying you can't move it, when you're saying you can't move it, the mayaskina, what are we dealing with? What's the status of this broom? The broom is a keli shemalachtalis, right? So therefore, its muksa status is that if I need its makom, or I need to use it for its tzarech, for gufay, but for heter, then I'm allowed to move it. So yeah, with tzarech gufay for itself, but in a heter way, but tzarech mukaymoy, if I need that place. Then why did Rav say you can't move this broom? A broom is a case you'll have to listen, so you're allowed to move it if you need to move it for its place or for something that's mutter to do. So so why did he say you can't move it? The Rav Karav is fairly. He holds like Rav that says case let's say you're allowed to move it from coming. So you know what the case was? Rather, the case is Elu Mechamel itself. Okay, it's not moving it, not for its place, and not for something that's mutter, but rather these brooms are in the sun, and the sun is going to ruin the broom. Okay, so I want to put it in the shade. Okay, so there's no heter here, muksa, right? It's muksa. So therefore you can't move it. So Bahalema Rabbi Eliezer Afshal Tamar. So the words of Rabbi Eliezer saying, "Oh, Afshal Tamar, you can move. How can you move it? It's not the koyboy. So how could you move it?" So the Gemara says, the case is mechamel itself, moving it from the sun to the shade. But Amo, you have to now change the words, and you have to say v'chein omer Rabbi Eliezer. So it says Rabbi Eliezer. V'chein omer Rabbi Eliezer. So it says Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, so we switch the words now. Everything fits in. Everyone holds. You're allowed to move it through Gufa. You're allowed to move it in Koimoy for its Makoim, and that's the case. So what comes out from this Gemara for our learning right now? That we're saying that it's also to sweep the floors. It's also to sweep the floors. Okay. That's what comes out. According to Kushimori, a broom is classified as an item that normally used for a forbidden action, okay, and therefore may not be moved out of the sun, but only when using it for forbidden purpose. In the case of sweeping on the floor is forbidden on Shabbat. Okay, so our Gemara that we have it in the Bavli, in our Girsa that we have, it says that sweeping with the broom is also on Shabbat. Again, we're talking about an earthen floor. We have to see how it compares to a tiled floor or a paved floor. But before we move any further, the Bahag, the Baal Hachot Gedolot, he had a little different of a version of the Gemara that we had, different Girsa. And in his Girsa, Rebbe Elazar Amar Afbil Shatamar. He stays that way. Says even by a palm frond broom, you're allowed to move it. Even Mechamel Itzal. Okay? And Savilik Rabbi Shimon, because he holds like Rabbi Shimon, the Omar, Dover, Sheina Mitkaven, Mutter, because that's what we hold the Meister, Halach the Meister, we hold Dover, Sheina Mitkaven, is Mutter. Right? We see the one who sweeps with the broom does not intend to fill holes. Dover, Sheina Mitkaven is basically, I'm doing something, it may or may not happen, and I don't have kavanah for it to happen. If it's definitely going to happen, that's Sikresha. But here it's may or may not happen. So I'm sweeping, right? I'm not trying to fill the holes. It's not my business. I'm not doing boining in the house. I'm not fixing the holes, right? I am simply wanting to make it look a little bit needed for Shabbat. So says the Baal Haggadolot, he says, the Gemara says, Afshel tomorrow, because the Elazar is holding the Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Shimon says, Davar Shein Miskaven is mutter lechatchila, and therefore I'm allowed to move this broom on Shabbat because it's not a Keish Lachulisa, it's a Keish Lachulahet. I'm allowed to sweep on Shabbat according to the Bahag. And so says the Rif. And again, we're talking about earth floor. And so says the Rif. Take a look in source number 5. Shabbos Mem Chesed Al B'Daf Pei HaRif. And the Rif holds. Va'idna D'Kaimel L'Kar Shimon. D'Amadam Shem Miskaven Mutter. So therefore, Michbadot Shel Tomorrow. Right? Davar Shemalach Leheter. It's a Davar Shemalach Leheter because I'm allowed to move it because I'm not miskaving to fill up the holes. They're allowed to move it from the sun to the shade. So this is the first group for us right now, the Rishonim, that are giving a heter to use a regular broom on Shabbat on an earthen floor indoors. Okay? Which would have been the issue of Bainet. And why are they mattering it? Why are they saying it's mutter? Their girsa is that Rabbi Elazar keeps the afshel tomorrow, and the reason why he does is because he's holding the Rabbi Shimon that says Davar Shem Iskaven is mutter. And here I'm just trying to sweep. I'm not planning to fill the hole, and it may or may not happen. So therefore, it would be mutter. But now we have to look at Rashi. Rashi in source number 6 in our books on page 257. So he writes, first of all, the shel tomorrow, these brooms of the date fronds, he says, Ke'en shalanu. It's like the ones they had in France in those days. All right, brooms for the floors. And it's used to sweep the floor. What do they use? Corn brooms? They had corn stalks. They use the corn stalks as a broom, you're saying. I guess they had corn here versus date palms. They didn't have palm trees, right? Only place you have palm trees is in Florida or something like that. Okay. Back in the old days. Okay. So he says, Mishum, why? Because you're filling up the holes. The Rabbi Shimon, this is Rashi. The Rabbi Shimon, the psik resha, because it's a psik resha below yamut, right? So Rashi is learning different than the Bahag and the Rif. Rashi is saying, no, when you're sweeping, that's not in meaning it's not. Bahag and the Rif was saying, I'm sweeping, it may or may not fill the holes. Therefore, it's Davar Shem Iskaven, it's mutter. Rashi is saying, you're right, it's Davar Shem Iskaven, but it's psik resha. It's going to happen. When you're sweeping the floor, it's going to fill the hole. It's going to. And if it's psik resha, then it's not mutter. So Rashi is saying it is osir. Tosfot, on source number 7 on the next page, Tosfot says there's another issue over here. Tosfot says that Vadai in the Chibud Isser, the Kuli Amo, Mipnei Shemozes Afar Mimkoimoy, because you're moving the earth. You're moving the earth. And moving the earth is a problem. What's the problem? It's a problem of muksa. This earth that you're moving, you didn't prepare to move it. You didn't want it to move it. So now it's muksa. So how are you moving the earth? It's muksa. You're not allowed to move it. Okay, fine. But you're still moving it. All right. So Mordechai says it's somewhat of a muksa issue. The Shar Tzion, let's see what he says over here. Says the Tosa did not clarify whether they mean the provision is due to moving earth which has not been prepared, and therefore it's muksa, or if moving earth is prohibited due to making a hole by digging. Right now, I'm digging. I'm moving earth from one spot to the other. I'm digging and moving. That might be a problem. Okay. The Gro also seems to say it's muksa, as implied by the Mordechai, and says the Shar Tzion that it appears that there's both reasons exist. So we have on the other extreme, we have Rashi and Tosfot, who both say sweeping the floor is usher. An earthen floor in the house is usher, whereas the Bahag and the Rif that it was mutter. Now let's take a look at the Rambam. Okay, the Rambam. By the way, before we move on, it's very important over here that what you're not allowed to move earth on Shabbat. So this comes into play sometimes when children are playing. Okay, when children are playing outside and they're playing on the earth, not on a paved floor, and they're playing jump rope or they're soccer or whatever it is, they're hitting the earth and they're making it move. You're not allowed to do that on Shabbat. You have to train the kids not to do that. Playing marbles on earth floor is also a problem, or kugelach or stuff like that, because a lot of times you need a flat surface, and a lot of times they try to flatten it. All right, so you shouldn't play these things on an earthen floor, and you have to be very careful. You shouldn't play soccer or stuff like that on earth.
A ball is mukta.
A ball is muksa, true. Not everyone holds that it's muksa, but you shouldn't. The kids shouldn't be playing with that. But even if they're doing sorts of running and races and stuff like that on earth, it's not pasha. They shouldn't be doing that. You're moving it, and moving it is issue of muksa. Okay, here he writes over here. One should not let children play games such as marbles or skip rope on a dirt floor on Shabbat, since they may end up moving the ground, right? And that's the problem. And we don't pay attention a lot of times. Let the kids just go outside doing what you have to tell them. They have to know where they play and can play. All right, let's take a look. Take a look at the Rambam. Source number 9 says also the Chabad is a karka. Sweeping the ground is forbidden. Because maybe he's going to fill the holes. Eila imkain haya rotzaf ba'avonim. Only if the floor is paved with stone. Okay, so Rambam makes this distinction. The Rambam makes a distinction between an earthen floor and a paved floor. And therefore, now he says further, he says sprinkling water on the ground, that's okay. Because when you're putting water, sprinkling water, not washing yet, sprinkling water like they used to do to keep the dust down, you're not miskaven to flatten it. So therefore, the Rambam says it would be much. So the Rambam makes a distinction here. Rashi, the Tosfot didn't make this distinction. Maybe it's understandable, but the Rambam makes a distinction very clearly. He says an earthen floor you cannot sweep because it might come to smooth it out, whereas a tiled floor or paved floor, cemented floor, a stone floor, that would be mutter and not a problem. However, the Sefer HaTruma, he goes one step further. He says, source number 10, Sefer HaTruma, Hilchos Shabbos, Va'afilu bayit sheyesh lo ritzpat avonim oser lechabed the shaykh ashavei gumos bein hasharos. He says because sometimes you have the paved stones, and in between the stones there's still some earth. Okay, so you might come to fill up the earth around the stones. Okay, so that's one reason. Now that's not what we have today in the house. We don't have that, right? But then he gives another thing, and he says, "Oy midirabanan, oy gezera bayit she'ein la ritzba." Maybe there'll be some houses that don't have don't have tile, right? And they still have earth. And let's make a loy plug. We're not gonna separate here yes, here no, right? Like the Rambam said, if it's stones, mutter, if it's earth in the wasser, says Sefer HaTruma, maybe we should make a loy plug, since there might be some earthen floors somewhere, and you can't sweep those, so you shouldn't be allowed to sweep stone floors either. Okay, let's take a look. So in summary, take a look at that box over there on page 259. Right after the Sefer HaTruma, in the middle of the page, the yellow, the brown, or the orange, whatever color you have. In summary, the Bahag and the Rif we saw allowed you to sweep a floor that's made out of earth. Because they say that you're not planning, you're not planning to smoothen it out, and it doesn't necessarily always happen. So therefore it's mutter. Then we had Tosfot and Rashi that said, Aser. Okay? They said you can't do it, it's muksa. It's a psikresha, it's boina, you're built, it's all these different things, you can't do it. And then we had the Rambam separated between distinct, it made a distinction between stone and earth. And Sefer HaTruma said, no, you can't even do stone because of the earth. You might get confused. So comes the Bet Yosef. And the Bet Yosef says, in halacha, source number 11, Kivan Shahar Rambam v'Harosh, Maskimum, they're maskim that what? List of the Chabad Karka She'enim roots of Hachinaktinon, since they say unpaved ground is forbidden, this is the final halacha. Elim Kain who malkum shepasha the minhag lehater, kivin demiyadi derabanan who v'yesh lehen gedaylum amash yismechu ein moichem biyadam. So says the Bet Yosef. So Yosef says, really, you're not allowed to sweep earthen floor that's made out of earth. However, if you find a community that they do sweep it, you don't protest. Because they have what to rely on. They have the Rif, they have the Bahag. So they have what to rely on. You don't protest again. But we shouldn't sweep on earth floor. The Karka Marutzaf, but if it is what's it called? A paid floor, Naktinin l'chatchil lahatir boy. Kibud kivan de l'Rif Rambam, sorry. Okay? Since the Rambam said it's mutter if it's paid. So says the Bet Yosef, just two ideas. Number one, you shouldn't sweep earthen floor. There's a community that does. Don't protest because they have the bahag and the rib, right? And paid floors that you allow to sweep lichatchila, and so says Rav Yosef Karo in the Shulchan Aruch, in source number 12. All right, he says also it's forbidden to sweep the house. Elim kain unless the ground is paved. Now he writes v'yesh matirin even if it's unpaved. Okay, so he brings it down in the Shulchan Aruch as such. Let's take
Is one allowed to walk on the earth? Let's say there's no sidewalk, just to walk on the earth to get through something.
So we'll talk about it in a minute. Better yet, here's a question. If a woman is walking with high heels, right, into the soft earth.
She's that's plowing. For sure a hole is gonna cross.
She's literally plowing, right? Was that mutter? See. It's gonna be, but let's see. Okay. The Ramah. The Ramah, he brings the Ashkenazic practice over here, and he says, "V'yesh machmirin afilu," when it's paved or tiled or stone, right? This is the Sefer Truma, right? So if even there, the English note says the Ramah, we don't sweep. Ashkenazim don't sweep. We don't sweep. Paid floor, non-paid floor, don't sweep and don't change the minhag, right? Mihu, however, al yidei enu Yehudi mutter. If you do it through a non-Jew, you tell the guy, sweep it for me, all right? Or if you can use a soft garment, cloth, or duck feather that definitely won't fill the holes, then that would be okay, says the Ramah. The Ramah is of the opinion sweeping tiled or not tiled or earthen floor, it's all going to be usher. You're saying as a danger to take away the danger. First of all, let's see the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says, what's the issue here? The Moses offer him kaimai, like Tosfos said, right? You're moving earth, which wasn't prepared, so it's muksa, right? One also fills holes while sweeping. We saw that one also, right? As the hole in the ground of the house become full of dirt. And this is the malacha of baina. All the one is not intended to fill the holes, nevertheless prohibited as it's sick ratio, like Rashi, right? In addition, some say that we are concerned that due to one being preoccupied with sweeping and making the ground tidy, he may forget, and he's going to come to fill the holes with kavana, meaning he gets so into his floors. You have nice new floors, and you start sweeping. What's going on here? Let me fix this. Why is this out of place? Especially, you right in the beginning, you want to make sure everything's good. So he says that's an issue. But through a non-Jew, it's mutter. Why is that? It's a psik reisha, right? It's the Rabbanon, it's a psik reisha, and it's mutai dein Yehudi. The Bimir lein Yehudi, we're not so makbid. So by psik reisha, the Rabbanon, we allow a mir l'nachri. Okay, so therefore you're allowed to tell the Jew and tell the non-Jew, and the soft sweeping them removes only the top layer of dust and will not lead to filling the holes. He says if you use the soft cloth that the Ramah said, that's not a problem because it won't fill holes. That's the Mishnah Berurah. Okay, so now the real question is today is there is no one, or at least almost nobody, in our community that has the floor made out of earth. What? Basement. In the basements. Okay, possible. Talking about the actual living quarters. Okay, usually if it's earth in the basement, you're not usually living there, right? So most people living quarters are tiled or paved. So remember, the Sefer Truma's whole idea was, which was the Ramah was going with, is as a loy plug, because there are some places where there's still earthen floors. So I'm not going to allow you to sweep paved floors either. That was the Sefer Truma, and that's what the Ramah said. The Ramah said, and don't change the minute. But what about today, when that's not the truth anymore? At least in our societies where we live, we're all living on paved floors and tiled floors and stone floors. No one's living on earthen floors. So does this Ramah, does the Sefer Truma still remain or not? Okay. Let's take a look at the Bir Halacha. Okay, the Bir Halacha brings, and you go through it, and he says, the reason why we say don't sweep a tile floor is because of the Xera, that maybe you'll sweep a non-tile floor. This is from the Sefer Truma. Okay. Now, what about today? Perhaps one can say As follows. Look at the bold part on page 261, source 15. According to this, when all or most of the houses of the city have floors covered by beams, meaning there's wood, right? There is no need to be strict regarding such floors. Right? The whole idea was gezerah. Don't do it on the paid floors because you still have unpaid floors. But today, that's not the truth. Everyone has tiled floors, wooden floors, hardwood, softwood. I don't know what you have. You have vinyl tiles, ceramic tiles, marbles, carpet. Right? It's all paved. Okay, get rid of carpet. Fine. flat surfaces. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Hey, did he? I guess he was talking about most people. Okay. The gamle muksa is not a problem. Okay, because right, it's what we're gonna come to learn that if you have a bucket of feces, right, you're allowed to move it. Anything that's disgusting, you're allowed to move on Shabbat, like eggshells and stuff like that are on the table. You're allowed to clean the table. You're allowed to take it off. The carpet is not. It's not a tile. It's not earth. It doesn't collect on the regular floor. No, it's not an earth floor. Okay. Furthermore, this is moving in a typical manner, right? Like you said, l'tzads, ma'atzad, davar acher, right? L'tzarech Shabbos, so he brought what you said. Okay, so it seems, says the Bir Halacha, that today Ashkenazim could sweep their floors because there's no more earthen floors. Take a look, Shemrat Shabbat, Hilchata. Okay. Now we come now to a new case. Okay. So it came out, that what you can sweep tile floors. Today, our floors, you can sweep them up on Shabbat. So if someone says, I'm not sweeping because of Shabbat, you tell them, no, you can sweep. All right. Especially during the spring, the spring and the summer to fall, you better sweep your floors after your meals because apparently the ants are very out in numbers, at least in this community, at least during that time. So you sweep it up, because the next thing you know, you wake up in the morning, you're going to have ants all over your dining room, and it's not going to be too much fun. Okay, so sweep up, no problem. No problem to sweep up tiled floors. It's permitted to sweep the tiled floor. That's what we have. Okay, now comes the next case. This case is as follows. Today, Baruch Hashem, we've all upped our living standards, and we have right outside our houses a patio. Okay, you have a patio, the balcony, you have some sort of
gazebo.
Gazebo. It's a paved floor. It's a wooden floor. It's not an earthen floor, but it's outside. Okay. So we said inside the house on a tiled floor, you can sweep, right? Because it's a tiled floor, your deck, whatever it is. So can I sweep my deck? Of course. He says, of course. Okay. But right next to my deck, guess what? I didn't finish putting cement there. So I have now earth around it as well. So I might get carried away with sweeping. All right, and I start sweeping now the earthen side. All right, I have a sukkah, and it's on the earth. It's not on cement, and I want to sweep it up. All right, can it be swept? So let's take a look at Shmirat Shabbat Kilchatam, and he brings as follows. He says, sweeping a floor of either a house or a yard, which is not paved, is forbidden. Okay, so already saw it has to be paved, it has to be tiled. In a place where most of the floors are not paved, in a camp of tents, sweeping even a paved house is prohibited. That was the Sefer Tzurba, right? He made that loy plug. All right, now, sweeping a yard, says is forbidden even if it is paved, since most yards of the city are not paved. Therefore, sweeping a sukkah built in the yard is forbidden even if the yard is paved. So the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata Renuarth is taking this Ramah, he's taking the Sefer Truma, And he's saying, remember, he wanted to make that loy plug, right? He wanted to make that loy plug that since there are houses that have earth floor and the houses that have tile floor, you can't sweep anything because you might come to sleep in earth floor. So now we said we get away from that, and we said today no one has earth floor, at least in our developed societies. Everyone has tile floors, so it's mutter. So he says, but that's not true in the yard. A lot of people's yards are not developed. They're not cemented. They're not put. So therefore, he says, to make that loy plug, doesn't make that loy plug.
When was the last time you slept?
A dirt floor? Let's start with anyone sweep. No, I've also slept dirt floor. Yeah. You have sometimes like a dirt surface, and it's pretty flat. It has some stuff on it. You just sweep it away. And yeah.
I think the low plug would be
Yeah.
up in the street, and no one sweeps. I don't know. Even if you have pavement, you have to go start grass around.
So he says you can't sweep the pavement because other fields are not paved. So he wants to make that loy plug. Fine. That's the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata. In the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata, he has a footnote, a ha'ara. And in there, he brings the Rav Orbach. From his Rav Orbach. And the Shem Rav Orbach says that, says, you know what? That deck, that patio, that cemented part of the yard, that should be viewed as an extension of the house. Right? That's what Shem Rav Orbach wants to say. He wants to say that the paved part of the yard, the paved part of the outside of your house is considered an extension of your house. And as such, if it's your house and it's paved, then it's mutter to sweep it. Understand what he's saying? Okay, so take a look. He wants to say that it's possible that if most of the houses are paved, like we have today, right? All paved houses, all tiled, all have floors. We view a paved yard as a continuation of the paved house, even if it's not roof. And we do not decree against sweeping a paved yard due to an unpaved yard. We don't make this gezerah of what the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata wanted to say originally, that most yards are not paved, therefore you can't sweep even a paved yard. He wants to say that the paved part of the yard is an extension of the house, and therefore it would be permissible to sweep. Right? And it's even if the rest of the yard was of dirt. So as long as that cemented part will have that extension. Okay. The Chazon Ovadia in source number 18, page 263, source number 18. Right, so he brings the Bir Halacha that we saw. Right, they're all tiled, they're all paved. They don't have karka floors in anyone's house. Ain't makom ligzar, so you don't make this gzeir of the Sefer HaTruma. Right, and then he brings the same thing from Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Then he says that we view a paved yard as a continuation of the paved house. And he says, and says the Chamavadia in his Chazon Ovadia, it's correct to be mekel like this. Even sheyesh bazeh sveik sveika leheter, the sveik sveika there to be mater. Hilkach af l'Ashkenazim does alibater haroy tarama yesh lahakel. So he says even for Ashkenazim it would be like of Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. So comes out for sweeping. Today you're allowed to sweep your houses. No problem on Shabbat because it's all tiled. And even the outside of the house, the cemented, or the tile, or the pavers, right? Your deck, whatever you have, those places that are not earth anymore are considered an extension of your house and would be permissible to sweep them. Okay? Fine. So that comes out. The halakha there. Says the Mordechai Eliyahu in his Kol Eliyahu, there's no reason to be strict regarding sweeping the house on Shabbat. And also, there's no concern that maybe the broom will break, as there was in their earlier times. They didn't have such high grade or heavy duty type of brooms, and things would break often. And the broom was made from straw, which would break while sweeping. Today, they're chazakim, they're very strong, right? And the bristles of the broom do not become detached or break. So therefore, there's no concern at all when it comes to sweeping on Shabbat in our houses, in our extension of our houses on the outside with paved and cemented areas.
Use that kind of whatever
It's not strong. It's
every time you break the whole floor.
it should be a strong one that doesn't break. Actually, let's outside the Tzurba for a moment just to see the way the Yalkut Yosef words this halacha. Says Sephardic Jews following the rules of Shulchan Aruch are permitted to sweep the floor of a house with the broom of Shabbat, just as they do with a broom made of stiff twigs. Right? It should be strong twigs. There is basis to permit it even when it's certain that some of the bristles will break off while one is sweeping, says the Yalkut Yosef. So if you know that something of them will break, he still says there's room to permit it.
Usually break, and what do you do? But the break bother you. You have to break it completely,
Further.
put it out, and then go.
Yeah.
That's why.
Then he writes, some poskim rule that even Ashkenazic Jews may sweep tiled floors. We saw this. We saw that. As long as they use a broom that has bristles that are unlikely to break off, and not one with straw bristles. Okay, now there's no fear that someone may sweep dirt floors, since all of our houses have tiled floors. Sephardic Jews may use any type of broom, even one with brittle bristles. Okay, so looks like he's allowing even those bristles that might break. And Ashkenazim would be more machmir on that. I would suggest also today it's very easy to get brooms that are sturdy, and most brooms are that way, right? You don't. Where do you get these twig brooms from? No, the Russian ones. They have them.
Sweeping the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Sweeping the sidewalk.
Oh, so sidewalk. So how do you view the sidewalk? It's tiled. It's outside. Is it an extension of your house or not? What? So if you take a look at page 263 in the Tzurba, in the footnote 14, right? He writes in the third to last line in that footnote number 14. He writes, here too many of the sources mentioned are lenient, since most sidewalks and streets today are paved. So there are those who argue that there's discussions of sidewalk and street in front of one's home. I would be of the opinion that since you have obligation to that front cement in front of your house on the sidewalk, right? If something happens, someone falls, the snow, whatever. So it's yours in the end of the day. You have a chayes to that, so it should be considered part of your extension of your house to some degree. And if you need to sweep it up, for whatever reasons, it's paved, right? It's tiled, it's paved, cemented, so it should be okay to sweep that on Shabbat. Okay, fine. So it comes out simply sweeping on tiled, cement, paved, marble, whatever it is, as long as it's not earth, is mutar, definitely in the house and outside as well, as long as it's considered an extension of your house.
With floor.
Yeah. What are you sweeping? You're sweeping the water?
No, it's with garbage. I'm like a tree. I'm taking the dirt and the garbage.
And you're putting the water where?
Outside. You put water outside.
He wants to sweep the water off the cement onto the grass.
Yeah. No, not the grass. Okay, maybe
on the earth. You can't do that.
Nothing on earth.
You can't be pushing it off onto that. You can't be pushing it off onto earth. Okay, now let's go to our next section, which is washing the floor. Can I give my floor a wash? Okay, can I wash my floors? In the sense of mopping the floors. Okay, so the first thing here, we're not talking about any issue of schita, of squeezing. Okay, so obviously, if there's an issue of squeezing, then that's straight out. That's malacha. You can't do it. Now, someone asked the question a couple weeks ago about the O cedar, if that's squeezing or not squeezing. The O cedar mop, the one that you put in and you.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the name of the thing. It says O cedar.
Oh,
That's the brand. Okay, whatever that is.
Spinning.
Okay.
Not
Okay, so it's spinning, and then what?
Then the water is dropping down.
And then you still take the mop out,
A little bit dry.
and you still put it on the floor.
Yeah.
So you're still going to be squeezing the water out that way.
You pour the water first.
Like that.
Let them pour the water first. Forget about it.
First of all, pushing that's probably considered squeezing that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
But in a second, it's still enough moisture. If you go down, it gets wet, right? That means it's squeezed out. You're squeezing it out. It's still squeezing. The squeezing is in the mop. The squeezing is on the floor as well. It's always
The more
squeezing.
you spin it, the more it's dry.
Forget it. The spinning is an issue also. But even if you didn't, if you want to say the spinning is not an issue, you're hitting the floor. It's the water in that mop, and the water's coming out. Where's the water coming out from? Because you're squeezing it onto the floor. It's being squeezed. Okay, so we're not dealing with an issue of squeezing here, and we have no. We're not squeezing in this case. We're dealing with a squeegee. All right, what's the squeegee? It's rubber mop. Okay, sponja in Israel they would do the sponjas. I've never seen it, but I've heard about it. They what do they do? I don't want to describe what they do. I've heard about it. My shiva spoke about the sponja they would do. Well, how do they do the sponja?
So in Israel, all their floors are first off they're stone or marble. They have a drain
Right.
on all their floors, and so they just wipe the whole floor, like literally just pour water on, and then just take their squeegee and
Push it into the drain.
Push it into the drain.
Right. So in that case, there's no squeezing there. They have a rubber mop. Okay. So that's the story that we're dealing with. So now let's take a look about washing the floor. All right. So it starts with a story in Masechet Shabbat, Kuf Nun Aleph Amud Bet, source number 20, page 265. There was a Maaseh, but Talmid Rabbi Meir, with the student Rabbi Meir, Shnichas Achel the Beit HaMerchatz, goes following him into the bathhouse on Shabbat. And he wanted to rinse the ground. And Meir said to him, you can't rinse on Shabbat. He wanted to put oil on the ground, smear some oil on the ground. You can't smear oil on the ground, right? This ground in one place can be confused with the ground in another place, meaning the tiled floor can be confused with a non-tiled floor, a dirt floor, and you're going to become to be mechalefet. You come to switch around, and you might be putting water here where it's tiled floor, and you end up putting water on a non-tiled floor, and that's going to be a problem of straightening out the earth. And filling the holes, which would be boina, right? So he says you can't do it because of this, because some places you have tiled and some places you don't. And now, if we take a look at the Rambam, The Rambam writes, the Farish, why is he right? You may not smear the floor with oil, even if it's paved. Okay, doesn't make that distinction like sweeping. That if it's paved, it's mutter, and if it's not paved, it's usher. Because even if it's paved, you can't smear the floor. And he says even you can't even wash it. Right? At least one do this. Right? Because this is what he does on a weekday. So he can't do it. So what comes out from this Rambam, he does not make that distinction like he makes by sweeping. By sweeping, he said paved versus not paved. But here, by washing, the Rambam says even paved you can't wash. Okay? Can't wash the floor even on paved, says the Rambam. Now, why is the Rambam making this distinction? Why is he saying by sweeping it matters if it's paved or not? And by washing, he's not, because I'm not flattening the earth. Right? The whole issue is that in the earth floor, I'm going to flatten it and level it. I'm not doing that on paved. So why is the Rambam not allowing washing by paved floor? So says the Maggid Mishnah. He says, source 22. So that's one of the things to keep the dust down and to make it look nicer. but it's more straighter. I didn't live there. I don't know exactly how the techniques work, but that's what they would do. They would put it down and they would hold it down. Yeah, sprinkling is okay, but here we're washing. We're actually washing. This is not sprinkling. Okay, so over here he writes that so he writes the gazer behem the fisha ein behem tzarech kimo b'chibud. He says on Shabbat you have no necessity to wash the floor. There is a necessity to sweep the floor. Floor is dirty. It has particles. I want to sweep it. No ants, no this, no that. Kids are running around, whatever it is. But to wash the floor, that's not a true necessity on Shabbat. Therefore, the Rambam doesn't make that distinction between paved and non-paved by washing. It's not a necessity for Shabbat. What? Oh, so you're foreshadowing now with the Chacham Ben Zion Abba Shaul is going to say the Or L'Tzion in the Or L'Tzion. You say, what about in a case where it is a necessity? All right, so we'll see. Let's get there. That was the source 23, and you can't wash the floor. You can't smear something on the floor, even if it's paved, like the Rambam. You can't do it. You can't do it. Paved, you can't do. Now, the Mishnah Brura, and he says, what's the reason for this? The reason for all these prohibitions is because we are concerned about filling holes, even according to the view that permits sweeping on Shabbat. As this halacha is different, as since one wants to improve the appearance of the ground by smearing it with oil or washing it, we are concerned that he will see the holes, forget that it's Shabbat, and fill them intentionally. So therefore, he doesn't make that distinction. Fill the holes if it's an earthen floor. Yeah, we extend it to the paved as well. Let me just take a look over here 1 second. Okay, here he brings down as follows, like we've been saying. It's more strict. Washing is more strict than sweeping. Why is that? Because if by washing the floor, not only one wants to clean the floor, he also wants to improve the appearance of the floor, right? And one is more likely to notice uneven ground and come to even it out. This is unlike sweeping, since in the case of sweepings, one's intention is to simply remove the garbage and not improve it. Sweeping the floor is needed for basic cleanliness of the house. Therefore, it's permitted. Unlike washing the floor, which is not essential. So really, these two ideas come together. Is that washing the floors is more of an appearance issue. It's not a necessity, and you might become more careful. You might start smoothing things out and doing things that might not be mutter on Shabbat. So therefore, you can't wash the floors as in washing. Okay. So now comes what David over here said. What about in a case where it becomes a necessity to wash the floor? All right. My kid ran around with the Coca-Cola bottle, spilled it all over the floor. The whole floor is sticky.
That's the best case.
Best case scenario. Okay. The whole floor is sticky. I can't walk. No one can walk there. Okay. Kid's not wearing a diaper, and he stained the whole floor. He's running around throwing everything everywhere.
Now it becomes an absolute necessity.
Okay, so let's take a look.
Can't room it anymore.
It says the look at source number 25. Look at source number 25. The Or L'Tzion. He says if it's so dirty, yesh lahatil hadicha b'cholay. If the floor is so dirty, you can wash the floor, right? You can wash it. Sheikasa Magid Mishnah. Shetar shel gezer b'chibud hu mishum shechibud nachutz yartem hadacha. V'imken yesh makom leimer shivayv shegam hadacha nechutza. When it's necessary, it's disgusting. Or where you're in a hospital that you need to have it sanitized always. Dina kedin chibud. Then the washing has the din of sweeping. Okay, so rubber like a sponge. Okay, like we said before.
Or not necessarily.
Okay, squeegee.
Or let's say
water squeegee.
Can you spray the Windex first, then pick it up with a paper towel?
You can use a paper towel if it's not squeezing.
Right.
Okay, so you can pour some water. You can put some water. No, if you put a little bit of water and you use a bounty, you're not squeezing.
Is that even coming to the what Rabbi Sion is talking about?
We're gonna see in a second. He says we can be ab initio lechatchila to wash the floor with water and a rubber mop, and there's no concern of squeezing out liquid when using a rubber mop. The rubber mop, you're not squeezing anything. But one certainly not use a cloth. As when using cloth, there's a concern of squeezing out liquid. So the chiddush of Ben Zion Abba Shaul is that what? Is that when the floor is so sticky, it's a necessity to wash. You're allowed to wash the floor. Rubber mop.
Why is it nothing? It's not taking. But it just brings Coca-Cola from here to here. From here to here. What is watching? When you pour water, your Coca-Cola murdigimesh. There. Bring it there.
And in fact, the Orchot Shabbat says the same idea as the Orlet Zion. The Orchot Shabbat says the same thing. As a time of great need, look at source 26. Right? You could be makel on this for several reasons. You could be makel on this. So we have a very big chidush here. Okay, you're allowed to wash the floor without squeezing. Again, in a situation with no squeezing, you're allowed to wash the entire floor if it's very very dirty.
With the soap, yes.
With the liquid soap, why not? Okay, fine. Now, take a look at page 268, source 27. What about a spot cleaned? Spot cleaned, cleaning on the spot. Okay, so he brings from Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach that it's possible that it's permitted to pour water on a dirty area of the floor alone and dry it in a permitted manner. Okay, so you're allowed to take a little bit of water and put it on a spot that has a little bit of dirt, right? Whatever dirt you have to clean up, and you're allowed to clean it off. And this is not an issue of washing the floor, right? And only on a paved area, right? Oh, not on an earthen floor. Okay, says the Chazon Nevadia in source 28. The floor of the house became dirty. Page 268, source 28. If the floor of the house became dirty, it's permitted to pour water on the dirty area and to remove with water using a rubber mop. Rubber mop is not to have any squeezing out. Similarly, if water is spilled on the floor, dragging the water using a rubber mop is permitted. The permission of washing the floor does not apply to washing the kitchen countertop. Right? Some want to say if something's mechuber lekarka, then it's part of the karka, so then you can't wash the countertops. It says the countertop is not considered karka. It's not considered karka. You can put water on it and move it off to the sink. You can put water in it and move it over to the sink. Spraying. No, you're just getting out the water. What are you spraying it with? Just time spray? Yeah, it's the counter is not considered karka. It doesn't have the same thing like the floor. The floor you can't wash unless it's a real tzarech, but the counter is not like that. Counter you can clean it. You can clean it off. Okay, let's take a look over here. Cleaning the counter with water and sweeping the water into the sink is not part of this restriction and is permitted on Shabbat. Okay. Let's take a look at the Yalkut Yosef for one moment. Halacha 11 and 12 over here. It's forbidden to wash any floor with water on Shabbat, even a tiled floor. Nevertheless, one may pour a little water onto a dirty spot and wipe it away with a squeegee. Okay? One may even use a rag to wipe dishes or a counter dry if one is not likely to purposely squeeze the water from it. When one is using a rag, one must use it gently to avoid squeezing it. Okay, so you're allowed to use a rag to clean the counter. Okay, we have a few more minutes. I want to get into the next section, which is dragging on an earthen floor. Okay.
Baby wipes is okay, right? Also, the countertops. Let's say there's a stain.
So a baby wipe that's not squeezing, it's not very saturated with water.
Right.
So then, yeah, sure, it's allowed. Why not? Okay. Okay. What's the story with dragging on an earthen floor on Shabbat? Okay, what are we worried about? That if he's dragging, he is making he's charish, he's plowing, right? He's plowing when he's dragging, and it makes an indent into the ground. Okay, now remember, we already talked about this. And if it's something that I'm not planning to do, right? It's not what's not my intention. It's mutter, and that's what we pass on halacha. Unless it's a psik reisha, I mean, it's definitely going to happen. Okay, so a lot of the cases, the way we look at it is on regular type of ground, moving things don't usually make that indentation into the ground. If it's a soft ground, right, soft earth, so then something that's pretty heavy, it's going to consider a psik reisha, right? It's definitely going to happen, indentation, and that's going to be a problem. That you cannot drag on the soft floor, because that's going to be a problem. Otherwise, we're going to say that it's a davar she'eino mitkavin, and it's not something that necessarily is going to happen. I'm not really caring for that indentation and for that furrow sort of being made, and therefore usually we permit it. So look at source number 32. I skip the gemarot that go through this psik reisha and davar she'eino mitkavin of moving things, but take a look at the Shulchan Aruch in source 32. Davar she'eino mitkavin mutter. Davar she'eino mitkavin, right? You're not planning to do it's mutter. Of psik reisha, as long as it's not going to be definitely happening. Hilkach gar adam mita. A person can therefore drag a bed, or he can drag a kisei, a chair, a safsal, or a bench. Ben gedolim mikitanim, whether they're big or whether they're small. As long as he doesn't intend to make that furrow. So you're allowed to drag on an earth that it's not necessarily going to happen. Okay, it may not, but I'm not planning to do it, and therefore I'm allowed to drag. I'm allowed to drag a bench. I'm allowed to drag my other things. You're allowed to do it because it's a davar shalom mitkav. Okay, that's the Shulchan Aruch. Now, there is a Gemara in Masechah Shabbat. Avin from the city of Tzipori dragged a bench in their upper story, second floor, and the floor was made out of marble. Before Yitzchak ben Elazar, and Yitzchak ben Elazar said, "If I remain silent to say nothing, as Rav Tar from the members of the group were silent, so nothing to Yehuda, damage will result." So he comes and he tells them they issued a decree on a marble second floor due to a standard upper story with an earth floor. So here he's moving. Avin is moving something on the second floor with a marble floor. And Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar tells him you can't move it because some second floors are earth floors, and you're going to make an indentation, so you can't move it. Now, in the box, Rashi explains just ben Elazar with the opinion of Yehuda, who prohibits the davar she'eino mitkavin. We don't pass in that way. However, the Rekeach writes. So Rekeach has another idea. He says that if the bench is so heavy that creating a furrow is inevitable, dragging it is forbidden, even according to Rav Shimon, even on a paved floor. The Rekeach takes it a step the other way. The Rekeach says that if something is so heavy, right, that if it was on the ground, on earth, it's definitely going to make an indentation, then you can't even move it on a paved floor. You're making this gezerah, right? Another loy plug. If definitely something so strong is going to make an indentation on the ground, then I can't even move it on a paved floor. That's what the calf wants to say. The Magen Avraham brings this. Mishnah Buram. The Shar Tzion writes in the city where houses do not have dirt floors, the stringency only applies outside the house. Inside the house, you can drag as much as heavy as possible, right? We're talking back in the day where some of the floor houses had earthen floors on the second floor. So then there was an issue of a loy plug. But today, where the houses, there's no one's having earth floor anywhere, right? So therefore, you're allowed to drag as heavy as it is. It's only outside where it's going to be a psik reisha, that would be the problem. Says the Orchot Shabbat the same thing. Dragging even very heavy objects is permitted inside the house. Okay. Well, let's take a look at this outside in a moment. For one moment, inside the Yalkut Yosef, in the English edition. It's very important to read this one. One may drag a bed, a chair, a bench along the ground, even though it may dig a groove or a ditch in the ground, as long as it's not his intention. Even if the furniture is very heavy, and it's almost certain that a groove will be formed, it's still permitted as long as it's not absolutely certain that this will happen. Okay? As long as it's not 100% that's going to make an indentation, even though it's very likely, it's still permissible to drag it. Okay? It's still permissible to drag it on a earthen floor. Now, what about, here comes the case from the Chevedat, Chamavadia deals with pushing a stroller or a wheelchair on the ground. So he writes over here a few reasons why it would be permissible to push a stroller or to push a wheelchair or anything with wheels really on Shabbat that's permissible to move. It says first of all, the halachas of Rabbi Shimon that Darush and Mitzkaven is mutar. Second, you're not doing it in the regular derech of digging, the regular charish, regular plowing, right? So it's not a biblical restriction. Third, it's possible the ground is hard enough, right? There's that efsherut, the possibility that it's not going to make an indentation. Fourth, you're making a destructive act, not constructive, because no one wants that furrow to be there. You're not making it nicely. And if it's not yours and it's irrelevant, even better. Okay, so these are some of the reasons why it'd be permissible. Interestingly, in the last source that we look on today, source 38 and page 274, Rabbi Ribiat brings pushing a carriage or a stroller on bare soil, even soft earth, is permissible, even if a distinct wheel mark appears. What's the reason? Rolling motion of the wheels do not loosen the soil, but rather compresses it. All right, you're not loosening the soil and making holes there, but rather you're compressing the soil. Compacting the soil does not improve it in any way for planting, and therefore it's not chayrish, says Rabbi Ribiat. So wheels on the earth is it's not like plowing, rather it's compressing, and therefore it's going to be permissible. He says over here. Interestingly, let's read Rabbi Nachson in his Chai Olamim. He says a person may walk with the cane on Shabbat, even though the cane may gouge soil and make holes. Similarly, a woman is permitted to walk with those extra high heels, even if they're nice, they're high heels. Although she will make holes in the ground as she walks, it would also be permissible. Okay, let me see one more over here. Right.
What page was
that? That about the heels. That's in that's in Chai Olamim, and the first volume, page 321, halacha 18. Okay, he writes over there that those things are would be permissible. Okay, fine. Well, we'll end off over here, and we said that next week, as it Hashem, as it is the few days before Rosh Hashanah, so we're going to do a shir on Inyone de Rosh Hashanah. We'll have both both Musar and Hashkafa and Halacha. We'll try to make it a nice mix, something to take with us into to Rosh Hashanah. So that will be next Sunday night. I want to give everybody a bracha as we're going into Yom Hadin. Baruch Hashem, we here sitting together Sunday nights, since when we started, we've exactly done 36 shiurim in Hilchot Shabbat. 36 gematria, double chai. All right. So walking into Rosh Hashanah, the double chai in Hilchot Shabbat, we should look forward to a year of hearing many good news for all of us and all of Klal Yisrael. And the greatest news we can hear is to hear that Mashiach has come and the Renewal Yisrael with the Gula Shlema. Okay.
Thank you. Shabbat.
And that should not hold us back from giving